See, our clubs have been meeting online since March, more or less. Our time of enforced isolation, however, may soon be over. Fingers crossed. Our clubs will soon be able to meet in person, and we'll be able to forget all about meeting online. But do we want to forget? Do we want to go back to how we met in early winter? Or do we want to meet in person and online in a hybrid meeting? Our discussion tonight will be led by a past district director, experienced facilitator of hybrid meetings, and enthusiastic nerd. Asking the question, Zoom into the future? Do you want to be a hybrid club? Please help me welcome Kyle Hall. Kyle is muted, unfortunately.
No, sorry. Thank you, James. Back in March, my home club, we had a hybrid meeting without even realizing we were doing it. And that's because we were not shut down yet. There was no order that had to come through saying you couldn't meet. But we had a couple of members who didn't feel like they could risk coming out because their immune system compromised or they're married to somebody who's immune system compromised. And we didn't want to lose them. We didn't want them to feel left out. So we said, well, we'll bring a computer and a projector and you guys can join us that way. And so we had our hybrid meeting, and then the next week we all got shut down. So my club just stepped right into meeting on Zoom. Not every club did. Some clubs eased into it. Some clubs didn't shut down entirely. Some clubs, have kind of limped and picked up on Zoom eventually. Zoom or whatever tool you're using. Most of us, I think, are using Zoom. And I think we thought we'd be meeting by now, that we'd be meeting in person by now. I know that back in June, we were looking at the phases going, hey, in August, we can start having in-person meetings. Not so much. But in June, when we were looking at that, we had to start asking ourselves, we've had guests from Texas and Alaska come to our club. We had a woman who, technically she's a snowbird. She's in Sequim now, but she's down in Nevada in the wintertime. Arizona in the wintertime, wrong state. Arizona in the wintertime. And she's going to want to stay a member. We had a member who moved to California. That person might want to come back. Well, if we're going to enable that, that means not just meeting in person. That means having a hybrid club. So my home club started talking about that, and I started putting together this presentation, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Do we want to have a hybrid club when we can start meeting in person? So I'm going to share my screen, and it helps if you click on the right thing. Okay. So are we going to zoom into the future? Do we want a hybrid club? Now, just so you know, a hybrid is two things that you might not think go together, but strangely enough, they seem to work. Like these two. So you wouldn't think they'd go together, but it kind of works. And we can make it work through a little practice. So let's talk about why we would want a hybrid meeting. Well, even when we can meet in person, even when we hit phase 4 or after and venues open up again and the governors say you can meet, we're still going to have members who are vulnerable. Somebody who is immune system compromised in March is probably still immune system compromised, and they might be nervous about coming back into the public. Or they might be married to somebody who's immune system compromised. We may have some long distance members. A friend of mine up in Alaska invited a long-term friend of hers to come and visit her club. Once the club met on Zoom, that person has joined. Now they have a member who attends the club and is a member of the club from 3,000 miles away. So Are you going to, if we move back in person, are we going to say, hey, you know, it's nice having you as a member and thanks for the dues, bye? What are we going to do about that? Jumping down to the third bullet, I'll go back to, I mean, fourth bullet, I'll go back to the third in a minute. When we're on Zoom, we are learning how to use technology and technology-based communication and leadership. And if you think this is not a useful skill, you'd be wrong. One of my friends down in Tacoma, her work, they all had to go virtual. Well, they needed to set up a series of interviews. It was panel interviews where they're gonna, 6 or 7 people, going to have multiple panels. They're going to have to shuffle people through the panel. And they had no idea how they were going to pull this off. Well, she went, hey, my club, she's a member of Sound Advice with me. She goes, my club, we use Zoom and breakout rooms. I know how to do this. And she showed them how to do it. She's a hero at work. This is valuable skills we are learning. How to communicate and communicate powerfully and clearly over technology. The last thing I want to mention is why we might want to consider hybrid club is attracting guests, attracting applicants from all over the place. My club, my home club meets in Squim, small town, big town, small city. We have one club. If I wanted to go to another club, I have to go 15 miles to Port Angeles or 20 miles to Port Townsend. So until March, all of our marketing has been geographically based. We put up flyers in coffee shops. We use the local Squim newspaper. We use the local Squim Facebook group to market our club and any event we're putting on. We don't have to limit ourselves now anymore. We can expand our geography and market ourselves anywhere. We can go to completely unserved markets. Like there's a town of Forks 2 hours away. They have no Toastmasters group at all. We could market there to get people to attend our meetings. The other thing, of course, is we could now focus on something other than geography. There's a club I'm talking with that they want to bring in writers and storytellers. Most of their members are writers and storytellers. They want more writers and storytellers. Well, you can bring in writers and storytellers from anywhere. It doesn't have to be local. So there's some opportunities here if we choose to be hybrid. And by the way, I'm not going to tell you you should be hybrid. I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't be hybrid. I'm just going to present the options and let you think about them. Now, if we decide to go hybrid, what does a hybrid club look like? Well, there's 2 ways you could do a hybrid club. The first one is you meet in person sometimes, and then you meet online sometimes. But you don't do in person and online at the same time. Now, if you think about what we're doing now, we're meeting online only right now. So if you're going to meet in person sometimes and online sometimes, really, we know how to do that. We know how to meet online. We've learned that. And we know how to meet in person. Okay, so we could just do that. We don't have to think about that a whole lot. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing that, talking about number 1. Number 2 is we meet in person and online at the same time. Now, I'm fortunate in that I've been a member of Sound Advice, and while we weren't using Zoom, we've been meeting in person and online for several years. So I've had a little bit of experience with this. So we're going to talk mostly about hybrid type number 2, in person and online. If you're going to do this, what do you need? What is the tech required to do this? Well, for the people who are online, they need a phone or a computer. The phone or a computer needs a camera and a microphone and a speaker. Nothing new there. Obviously, you need a high-speed internet connection and you need a tool like Zoom. Doesn't have to be Zoom, could be anything. Now, for the people in the room, for the in-person group, you need a computer. You need access to the high-speed internet connection. Now, this is something we may not have asked our venues. We may not have asked our venues, do you have broadband or high-speed internet, and can we access it? Can we access it for free? So we should have that conversation with them. And obviously, we need our in-room participants. Now, the in-room computer needs to have a microphone, a camera, and sound. And I recommend having a mobile camera. So let me talk about what I mean by a mobile camera, an external camera. So this is an example of an external camera with a microphone built in. And I think they're really helpful, and I'll show you why. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. So here's my laptop. This is my laptop that I might bring with me to a. I might bring this with me to a meeting. And up here is the built-in camera. Down here is the built-in microphone. If I'm sitting at my coffee table or my dining room table and I want to have a Zoom meeting on my laptop, the camera and the microphone work great because I'm 2 feet away from the laptop and I'm right in front of it. But if I'm sitting in a meeting and the person at the lectern is speaking, then I need to turn my laptop to, and now I can't work at it because it's busy facing the lectern. Oh, and they ask a question, and Michael over on the side gives the answer. So now I have to face it to Michael, and then put it back, face it forward again, and then turn it to Rhonda, and it becomes absurd. Waving my laptop around, it doesn't work. So what you do is you have a external camera. Now this is a Logitech. It's an external camera just like the one I showed you, except the cord is tangled up. Give me a second. And it has a USB port. It has a USB connector at the end. You plug it into your laptop, and this is just a Logitech. And the nice thing about this is it's extremely easy for me to hold. I can leave the computer. I can face the computer. I'm going to turn off my background because it's interfering with your ability to see this. Sorry about that. I can hold this easily in my hand. I can aim it at Michael. I can aim it at Rhonda. I can aim it up front. It will pick up anybody within 10 or 15 feet. So it works beautifully for that kind of purpose. And I can just point it at whoever's speaking. It makes it very easy to deal with that type of thing. Now, the other thing I didn't mention, and I need to add this to my slides, is you're going to want to project the Zoom meeting. Now we're all looking at each other here, maybe in a grid form, maybe in speaker view, doesn't matter. The people in the room are going to want to be able to see who is online. Maybe one of the people online is speaking. We're going to want to be able to see them. So you're going to want to have a projector of some sort that can plug into your laptop and project it either on a wall or on a screen. So we need that, and I did not capture that in my notes. We need to add that. Now, some optional equipment. You do not necessarily have to have an external microphone. As I mentioned, I use the external camera with a built-in microphone, and I just point it, and that works great. But let's say you're having a big group discussion where everyone's chipping in and brainstorming. It's kind of hard to aim that camera at everybody at once. Now, if you have a camera like I'm showing here, the external, that's a Blue Yeti microphone. And it's a good microphone. It has you need a microphone that can be set to be omnidirectional, meaning you can talk at it from any direction. And that'll pick people up 15, 20 feet away quite easily. And again, it plugs into the laptop with a USB port. Another piece of optional equipment, you don't necessarily need it. It depends upon your room's acoustics and your laptop speaker. If your laptop speakers, built-in speakers are great, you probably don't need it. But you might want to consider external speakers. Once again, they plug into your laptop with a USB port. You're going to have a lot of USB ports. But if somebody's speaking online, you'd be able to hear them better. So that's optional. The speakers I'm showing here cost about $12, $13 at an online store. So not a big investment. However, if you are toting this stuff around, somebody's going to have to worry about making sure there's a laptop and a camera there and that people know how to set it up. Now, if you're going to do this in a setting, if you have your room set up auditorium style, I recommend using a format kind of like this, with a lectern up front, projecting the screen to the side so that people in their chairs can just turn and look to the side if they want to see whoever's online. And if you're setting up in a U-shaped style, then I would recommend setting up something like this. So that, again, the lectern and the camera are opposite ends of the room. People online can see who's speaking, and people in the chairs can look to the left or right, depending on where they're sitting, to see the speaker, and look the other direction to see people online. If we have a hybrid club, it's going to require a few things from us. Moving into a Zoom meeting, moving into online meetings required an open attitude from us. If we're going to move into a hybrid club, it's going to require more open attitude. We're going to have to try some things. We're going to learn some lessons. We're occasionally going to fall on our face. We're going to have to be willing to learn. We're going to need a new meeting role. Now, you may have a Zoom master right now. My club has a Zoom master. We replaced our greeter, our in-person room greeter, with a Zoom master when we went online. Well, if we go back in person, we'll need a greeter and a Zoom master. And the Zoom master is the person with the laptop and the little remote camera and so forth. Now, here's some of the more interesting questions, and we're going to talk about these tonight. How do online members impact my speech? If I'm one of the in-room speakers, or maybe I'm an online speaker, how does the fact that there's people in a room and people online, how does it impact the way I give my speech? If I'm the Toastmaster for the meeting, how does the fact that there's people in a room and people online impact the way I Toastmaster? How does the fact that that we have a hybrid club, assuming we choose to have a hybrid club, how does that affect my ability to make progress in pathways? How does having a hybrid club affect our club's ability to market itself, to grow and increase our membership, to bring in new members? And the last question, which we're not going to talk about in breakouts, is how do we ensure that equipment is present? It's going to be a mixture of getting your club's tech people involved along with your sergeant at arms to make sure that equipment is there. So the questions we just talked about, we're going to deal with in the breakouts. Now, all of you who are here received an email from Eventbrite that gave you the link, and it gave you a link to the agenda. It also gave you a link to the breakout room instructions. If you haven't already clicked on that, I hope you will, because you're going to want those. We have 4 breakout rooms. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting digitally. R. So we have 4 breakout rooms, and you're going to be randomly shuffled off into those breakout rooms. And what I'd like you to do is to look at the breakout room you're in. The title should be up there. And look at the instructions for that breakout room and deal with that. And you'll have about 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes in your breakout room to work on the question as a team. And you'll choose a facilitator, somebody to facilitate the group, and you'll choose somebody to be a recorder and report back to us. So Linda, if you are ready, you can hit the button and shuffle people off into the breakout rooms. Bye.
And we are pouring back in.
Well, some of you are coming back early. You could have used the full 2 minutes.
We were rushing, and we had just wrapped up and gave a summary real quick. So
oh, wow.
We figured we wouldn't hold everybody else up.
Oh, well, you're early. They're late. They've got.
We can feel superior.
They have 66 more seconds to get here.
Excellent. That was a high energy meeting, though. That was a lot of fun.
A high energy breakout?
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I think the time constraint was part of
Plus,
Yeah,
we have James facilitating it.
I was wondering if it was going to be 13, 14 minutes. I was wondering if that was going to be enough time. So
Yeah, we were pushing it there, and I was kind of keeping an eye on the clock. Like, did we miss the notice to get pulled out or not? But okay.
And we still did introductions.
We did, yes. They were very fast introductions.
You are a new club. The name of the club is very intriguing, I have to confess.
Nerd Masters.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're quite proud of that moniker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
It's
named our
exciting.
We would invite you to join our nerd herd.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yep. We have a lot of fun with puns with us.
Does anybody else have a screen that's going in and out, black, and then an image, black, and an image, in and out, or is it just my 4th century leap feet?
It's you, Jerry.
I think it's you, Jerry.
Though for a bit there, Kyle's was a bit spazzy, but it's calmed down now. So
Jerry, I have to say it's internet speed. The packets of information that can be transmitted, it just gets bottlenecked.
it gets glitchy.
Is my image that you guys are watching, is it going in and out, and out?
It looks fine to me.
Well, I see it as pixelated, but other than that, it's
Yeah, it's a little pixelated, but yeah, other than that, yeah.
Well, yeah, I just have to decide whether it's okay to say, well, it's just the North Pole, or do I have to get more speed?
All right, so I am looking at the.
Is there anyone left in the breakout rooms, Linda?
Nope, it's all closed out.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good. Take it away, Kyle.
Okay, so we're going to give each group a chance to report back. So for the I'm speaking group or I'm talking group, who is reporting back?
Roberta, you're up.
Now, I would recommend you everybody put yourself on speaker view. But Roberta, what did your group come up with?
Well, with regards to talking prep, there's things that has to be considered, such as being able to focus on the camera. When you're in a completely Zoom environment, we all know to look at the camera, but then we get distracted by wanting to be able to see everyone's facial expressions. But when you're in a hybrid meeting, the camera is multifocal, where you have people in the room and a camera at a far distance, depending on where you set it up. That brings into issues of enunciation and projection of your voice, being able to project your voice loud enough to where it can be caught by the camera without shouting out the people in the room. Last but not, or second to the last, are dealing with handouts. In a completely Zoom environment, you can send the handouts digitally, send them in advance, but when you're in a combined environment, you have to consider printing out the handouts and how are you going to present things to it. Like if you have a PowerPoint presentation, how are you going to facilitate that online and in the meeting facility itself? Last but not least is dealing with those round robin discussions. A lot of clubs do evaluations that include a round robin discussion at some point in the meeting. You definitely don't want to ignore the people who are participating online, so you need a facilitator, someone who is monitoring the chat room to make sure that they're raising their hands for those people and representing them online. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Roberta. Who is representing the I'm Toastmaster group?
I am.
Okay. Zoe, what do you have for us?
Oh boy, this came up with a lot. Okay, the Toastmaster must be.
Zoe, we can hardly hear you. Can you?
I should have worn my headphones. Can you hear me
go.
now?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. The Toastmaster must be able to address both the camera and the room. And on. Okay, so the room setup is really important, and you need to have one person with really good technical knowledge to keep the meeting flowing tech-wise. And the people in the room and online need to be flexible and willing to take any role And so the Toastmaster needs to encourage people to attend online if they cannot get there and to sign up for a role. If you're a speaker, you should be on camera. You do not just be on speakerphone. We want to see you if you're a speaker. I think I got everything else. I think that's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do you guys mind if I throw in a couple of things that I've seen a couple of groups do? One of the things I've seen, especially for grammarians, some grammarians will just handwrite what their word for the day and hold it up. Some grammarians will actually create a JPEG and use it as a Zoom background. So their word for the day is a Zoom background. Some grammarians will post it into the chat. And there's some fun things you can do for your various roles in the meeting. And of course, our timer tonight is using his Zoom background to show red, green, yellow, and red. You can do that. We also, in one of my clubs, we had a lady show, she used fruit or vegetables. So she had a bag of spinach for green and a summer squash for yellow. Had some fun doing that. The next group is, I believe, the Pathways group. So who's reporting on the Pathways group?
I think that's me, Kyle.
Okay.
Stephanie. So we thought about the Pathways impact in terms of what kind of projects might be most impacted by being a hybrid meeting. Panel discussions may be more difficult in a hybrid session, having some panelists in person, some online. That could be a difficult situation. Facilitated discussion, having to pay attention to two separate audiences while you're doing that. Sometimes even just keeping order during the meeting seems to be a little tricky for hybrid or online meetings. And limited view of the group in the room if you're only getting a far shot of people in the room. And also demonstration presentations might be a little more tricky in a hybrid meeting if you're demonstrating a process.
Okay.
So some solutions we came up with was, if you can afford it or have access to it, a sound file following camera in the room could be helpful to get a more focused picture of who's speaking. The mic placement in your room is very important, so you should test that before you have a hybrid meeting. Instituting a permanent Zoom master role to help with facilitation and protocol during the meetings could help with some of that. And echoing what Roberta said, sending out your handouts or slides beforehand to help with that. And also, last minute, John had an idea of, if you were doing a demonstration meeting, wouldn't it be cool if you could have a 3D photo of your demo item so the person online could see it as well as the person in the room could see it? So that's pie in the sky ideas if anybody's smart enough to figure that out.
Now, did you notice any projects that would be easier in a hybrid meeting?
We did not discuss easier ones.
Okay. The one that leaps to my mind is just as easy in a Zoom environment, Zoom only environment, as it is a hybrid, and that's the managing online meetings. That's the obvious one. So I can tell you, what's that?
Networking.
A networking meeting, that would be interesting. I'm used to thinking about networking meeting as an in-person event, but yeah, that would be interesting. I can tell you from my experience with Sound Advice, we send out our agendas in advance, we send out our handouts in advance. We do have somebody, while we're facilitating a group discussion, we do have somebody watching the screen to see if anybody has a comment. Otherwise, it's really, really easy to forget about the online participants and only pay attention to the in-room participants. Now, who is reporting on the club growth? Is that you, Michael? Nope.
I am Kyle.
Sandra.
Yes,
okay.
Sandra Colt here.
Thank you.
Club growth. Well, firstly, we acknowledge the fact that we are social beings and that we do enjoy in-person meetings. However, the reality is, and the great advantage is, that going to a digital format, we're not restricted. that's our gold mine. The whole world is our oyster. We can visit clubs and have members from Romania, Ireland, South America, wherever. And if we go to more topic-specific clubs, then we have the opportunity to really distinguish ourselves as learners and experts in a very specific topic. And if we even take that and hone it down, we use Nerdmasters as an example. What if we honed that down to maybe even having IT-specific clubs or networking, digital network specific clubs or internet security specific clubs? Just think of that. We could possibly distinguish ourselves as the only club in North America or even the world as a specific topic. So now just think about how that would be for growing a club. I mean, it's just really awesome to even think about. But even now, we were talking about how close we are, for example, Washington State, across the border into Canada, about marketing to those audiences as well. We also talked about online format being generally a corporate world, but now it's reaching everyone, all of us, and we all need these skills. And that's reality, as Kyle mentioned earlier on in the meeting. It's where we're going, whether we like it or not. So it gives everyone, no matter at what level of technology skill we're at, the great opportunity to learn and learn at our level and find a club at our own level and interest level in that where we can learn and grow. And this led to a very interesting question at the end of our group. Well, now we're looking at clubs being potentially worldwide. What does a district look like? Something to think about. Did I miss anything in our group?
No, you were perfect. Fantastic. Woohoo!
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your reports. And by the way, this session is being recorded, and we hope to, assuming the recording comes out okay, we hope to post it on the District 32 YouTube channel so that other people can benefit from this material. So we've talked a little about why we might want a hybrid club, what's involved technology-wise if you want a hybrid club, what's essential, and then a few extra options. We've talked about some of the questions that come up, some of the things we actually have to think about. You know, it's going to impact the way we speak, it's going to impact the way we run the meeting, how we play the various roles in the meeting, it'll impact our personal growth and pathways, and it could definitely impact our marketing. I have an interesting exercise for you guys to do in your club. Just an experiment. Because I was talking with a club and I said, who do you want to invite to join your club? Now, the first response I got was, well, we want everybody. And it's like, well, yeah, we want everybody. You know, we've all drunk the Kool-Aid. We think everybody should be a member of Toastmasters. Sure. But we can't market to everybody. I said, let's just an experiment. Let's pick a demographic. If you could get a few people of a particular type into your club, who would you want? A little uneasiness, and somebody said, well, we're all writers and storytellers. I'd like more writers and storytellers. Okay. Said, how could you communicate with writers and storytellers? And as soon as they started thinking about that, I said, well, there's a writing bookstore in town. They probably have a client list. And the person who runs the store would probably email his client list. Gee, there's a storyteller guild. Well, we could just, one of our members goes to that. We could talk to them. There's a storytelling event every year. We could talk to the event planners and maybe email them. The point is, as soon as they have identified a demographic, 5 minutes later, they had ideas about how to talk to that demographic. If you're thinking, I want to grow my club, we need to communicate with everybody, it's hard to come up with a way to do that. But if you choose to narrow who you're inviting. Now, we're not saying, oh, if you're not a storyteller writer, you can't come. No, anybody's welcome. Anybody's welcome. And if you want to join, we'll let you join. But if for a little while, 6 months, our club is going to focus on a demographic, it suddenly becomes really easy to communicate with them. So we've talked about the questions that us as clubs need to deal with and have that discussion. I would encourage you to go home, go back to your home clubs, talk to your club officers, plan a whole club discussion. Maybe it'll be 10 minutes long, maybe it'll take the whole meeting, but plan an entire club discussion. Do we want to be hybrid or not? Do we want to be in person only? Do we want to stay online? What do we want to do? I suggested it's better to make a conscious decision about where you're going to go than to fall into it. So my question for you and for your clubs is, do you want to Zoom into the future? Do you want a hybrid club? Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Kyle. That was a lot of information, well packed, and that was a high energy breakout session for us. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that, got a lot out.